Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Perth South Model Railway. In this video, I'd like to show you how I went about building this model of St Leonard's Bridge. Now, St Leonard's Bridge is a major piece of infrastructure at the south end of Perth Station, and it links the Craigie area of Perth to the city centre. As far as I'm aware, this bridge dates back to the building of the Scottish Central Railway into Perth. Like many railway bridges, it was built originally as a simple masonry arch bridge, but then as road traffic has increased, the additional footpaths have been added as cantilever sections either side, and in this particular bridge, further additions have been made to the side in the form of a utilities bridge to carry public utilities, and also nowadays it carries some of the cables, some of the cross-track cables associated with the signalling of the railway. The main structure of the bridge is formed of 2x1 timber. I had plenty of that left over from building the baseboards, and some 4x1 timber. It's a bit heavy duty, but it certainly takes the shape of the bridge. I've actually got 5 arches on my bridge. There's actually 6 in the prototype, so I've cut one back at the west side. I've also had to make the arch at the east side at a skew angle because the angle of divergence of Pico Streamline railway track that I've used is very different from the very slender acute angles of real railways. Now, to get the dimensions of the bridge, I've used Google Earth, which is a measuring facility, and I've also paced out parts of the bridge, even taken a tape measure to the parapets. But at the end of the day, you have to adjust prototype reality to fit in with the spacing on your model railway. So I have had to adjust various dimensions to make sure the bridge fits in with the tracks on my railway. To get the shape of the arch, I've used a set of French curves and basically just taken a nice elliptical shape that looks like the arch of the prototype. So I've cut out a paper template and then used that to mark out a 2mm card, and I've cut the shape of the arch from 2mm card, which I'm going to use to form the faces of each arch of the bridge. Now there's how many? 10 faces. There's 5 arches, so 10 of these to be cut out. And they are slightly different sizes for each of the arches. So I glued them all in place and then checked to make sure that everything still fitted. I ran a few trains through to make sure they didn't bang into the arch, and before going on to the next stage. Now, if you look at this photograph of the prototype, you'll see that each pier is finished off with a stringer course of masonry before the springing of the arch. And to recreate that, I've used strips of cardboard, 2mm cardboard round each pier to recreate the stringing course. Now, for the masonry itself, I've used Scale Scenes stone papers again, and in this case this is TX44, which is dark random ashlar, and I thought about using an embossed plastic card, but given that the areas of masonry in the bridge are actually fairly hidden at the end of the day, and to be honest, to get the shading of the masonry, I felt this was a pretty good match, and I'm not a particularly great artist, so I didn't fancy trying to recreate the colour of the masonry. So the Scale Scenes masonry paper does the job for me. The arches themselves are actually engineering brick, and for that I've used the same brick paper I used on the platforms of the station, and that's a Scale Scenes TX24 masonry sheet. And I simply cut them to shape and glued them into place. Now the angle shaped stones round the edge of the arch connecting the arch to the spandrel walls are known as voussoirs, and as an ex-British Rail civil engineer I wanted these to look right with the correct squared off edges top and sides. So I decided the only way to get these looking nice and to hide the join in the brick paper was to cut out each one individually and try and cut it to shape, which was a long and tedious job, but it meant something to me, so I went ahead and did that. Now for the parapet girders in the bridge and the various other parts of wrought iron work, I used the Wills kit, Vari girder kit. Now the prototype bridge panels are a different shape and size to the Wills girder kits in 00 gauge, but I reckon that given the length of the panels in my bridge, I needed 5 Wills kits to make up these panels. It was just going to save so much time compared with scratch building out of plasticard that I decided a compromise was worth the time saved. So used these kits, clipped all the panels together and stuck them together using plastic weld. Now, because of the complexity of the support angles and steelwork, I prepared a scale drawing showing roughly exactly what I wanted to achieve. And then I used these plastruct components, which are miniature angles, I-beams, channel sections, and cut them out to a template size and started gluing them together with plastic weld again. The stanchions are quite complicated, so I made up a simple template with some track pins and a piece of plywood and used that to hold the plastruct channels in place, and then welded on some plasticard strips to make up these stanchions. There was some additional timber work and cardboard required to form the wing walls in the bridge, and then I used the same masonry paper stuck to 2mm card and stuck these in place for the wing walls. Next was an extra layer of 3mm ply to form the full width of the bridge deck and pavements, and this was screwed down and filled. The screws were filled to make them flush. This in turn had strip or sheets of 10 thou plasticard glued down to provide a smooth surface for the road, which I could then paint. Next up were the footpaths, and again 2mm card cut to shape, and they were scored with the curbs at the side of the road. These were just scored to provide the shape. These were painted with grey paint and then spray painted to give a kind of mottled effect of concrete. I'm not actually sure what the platform surface was in the 1960s, but I'm assuming it was some kind of granolithic screed. Now the base of the support stanchions are concrete blocks with concrete added round about the base of each stanchion. Now it wasn't until I looked back at these photographs that I realised they are all concrete. I had it in my mind that they were actually brick in the lower half, and I've done mine with brick paper surrounding the bottom. Haven't yet added the concrete around the base of the stanchion, and I guess I'll change these to make them correct at some time in the future, but I think I've done enough with them just now. Now, to make the steps down from the bridge to the station platform required a bit of sketching and measuring before I get the angle and the position of the landing correct. The steps in the station platform were removed. The steps were removed somewhere around about 1968, and an extra panel put in to replace the opening of the bridge. Again, I've used Plustruct steps and handrails to build mine. Again, they're not quite correct if you look at the originals, but they're pretty convincing, and they'll do me certainly for the moment. These were again spray painted with the matte grey primer from Humbrol, which is a pretty good match to the colour that were painted in the 1960s. The parapet girders and associated steelwork were all spray painted with again the Humbrol matte grey primer. It's quite a good match to what it was in the 1960s. It wasn't actually particularly rusty in the 1960s. I have given it a light weathering, but the most noticeable feature in terms of the colour, of course, is the smoke marks, and they were quite prominent, and I've replicated them on here. Then it's a case of pulling it all together. The final masonry walls, the final wing walls, were covered with their masonry paper. Masonry parapets were added either end, and the parapet girders themselves are held in place with track pins drilled and pinned through into the timber deck of the bridge. Overall, it's quite presentable. I'm quite happy with it. It's not exactly the same as the prototype, but it's a pretty good match to what's there, or what was there in the 1960s. There are still things to do to it. I need to add some people or vehicles in the road. There was actually a gate at the top of the stairs, and of course I haven't added any of the utility pipes and cables that cross the utilities section of the bridge. But to be honest, I've done enough for the moment. I want to go on to other things, and that'll do just now. St Leonard's Bridge has always been a popular spot for railway photographers, and I couldn't resist sharing with you some of these images from various books of Perth in the 1960s. Hope you enjoy. Now, we have to finish with a running session. Isn't that what we're all here for? Running trains? So let's have a few trains running through Perth. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.